Tonight, the new queue as booster shots come early, but testing clinics remain closed or clogged. 1 in 4 people being tested now positive.
The meat industry calls an emergency, a warning of major food shortages before the month's end.
Ratting out rat prices, the consumer watchdog investigating rapid test rip-offs and the new way to track one down.
Exclusive details and new pictures of the alleged arsonist accused of torching Old Parliament House.
The secret deal unsealed. Will the once confidential document save or hurt Prince Andrew?
The sales full of colour inside the new Opera House production just for children.
And all systems go for the Pink Ashes test. The Aussies keeping the faith with their Boxing Day hero, Scott Boland.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Michael Usher and Angela Cox.
Good evening. Thousands of people have spent hours queuing across Sydney today, not just for COVID tests, but for booster shots. Millions more are now eligible for a third jab, as case numbers and hospitalisations once again soared.
A record 23,000 people tested positive in the past 24 hours. With a new high of 1,344 now in hospital, as Australia passes 500,000 COVID cases since the pandemic began.
At the Olympic Park vaccination hub, it was déjà queue, as today those who got their last jab during Sydney's vaccinating peak became eligible for the booster. Charlotte booked hers this morning.
I mean, it's better to just get it done, I think, so yeah.
Looks like you've come prepared for the queue anyway.
Yeah, I got my book, so.
I would have preferred to go to my GP, but I couldn't get in until February, so I've come here instead.
At Cabramatta, the line for boosters started before opening at this pharmacy.
I think even if you don't believe in the vaccine, if there is a chance to be safe, I'd take it.
I still want extra protection because I don't want to pass on the virus to my loved ones. And it has been now 4 months.
Pharmacist Quinn On says there's so much demand, he's vaccinating 200 people a day, but it's a struggle.
We're down to skeleton staff basically because everyone's getting infections. We are actually pulling people out of annual leave.
It's just the beginning of a month that will put the nation's vaccination abilities to the test, not just with booster shots, but from Monday rolling out the COVID jab for children aged between 5 and 11.
That's going to take the sort of rates that we saw at the height of the program, getting up over 2 million doses in a week.
Quinn argues the government needs to lift its remuneration to get more pharmacies to join in.
Many of our colleagues are actually not doing it because you can't even keep up with boosters. What's the chance of doing children?
With many GPs still on holiday and pharmacies booked out, New South Wales Health vaccination hubs are open, many 7 days a week, most accepting walk-ins. As thousands faced another long wait lining up for PCR testing, made worse by the number of sites closed or only on reduced hours today. It's to try to help clear the pathology backlog, but just put more pressure on those clinics that were open.
We can't have a situation where people, like in the line behind me, are baking in the sun for hours, potentially infected with the COVID disease.
From 83,000 tests yesterday, a record 23,000 were positive. That's more than 1 in 4 people in the queue confirmed with COVID.
The data's not entirely telling us what's happening. There's certainly many more cases of COVID out in the community that we're not aware of.
This tracker from New South Wales Health showing how infections have swept through Sydney over the last 4 weeks. And there are now more than 1,300 people in hospital with COVID, more than at any other time during the pandemic. But encouragingly, the 105 people in intensive care is much less than last year's peak.
At the moment, it's getting extremely tight. And, really there is some concerns about, where we go from here.
As doctors start warring over how bad it'll get, Sydney immunologist Dan Swan posting, "I genuinely hope people stop listening to Nick Coatsworth. I am warning you in no uncertain terms, hospitals are about to be overwhelmed by a tsunami of COVID patients."
We will probably continue to see cases increase over the next few weeks, but by February I'd expect that we should see a plateauing and cases starting to come down.
And Paul Caddick joins us now. And Paul, the country reaching that new COVID milestone tonight.
That's right, Angela. Now more than 500,000 cases for Australia throughout this pandemic. In fact, tonight has reached 547,000, and half of those were just in the last 2 weeks. There is sad news out of Adelaide, the death of little Dakota Nengi, just 13 months old. She died suddenly in her sleep after becoming infected with COVID. Now, it's not yet known what caused her death, but but Dakota is now the youngest Australian to die with the virus. There were another 2 deaths reported in New South Wales today, a man in his 90s, another in his 70s. Since the pandemic began, 2,270 Australians have died with COVID.
OK, thank you, Paul.
Well, we're being warned tonight there could be meat shortages within 2 weeks unless workers are given priority rat testing. The industry says this is now an emergency, with hundreds upon hundreds of staff forced into isolation. And it's not just meat supplies being hit.
Completely bare supermarket shelves, emptied by a perfect storm of holiday shortages and the COVID effect, biting hard into availability in the shops.
There's a lot less fruit and veg, so you just got to get whatever's there.
Inevitable, I think, and but I was able to get everything that I wanted.
The big grocery chains, Woolies and Coles, say the stock is often there, it's just getting it into stores. COVID causing high absentee rates among retail staff and distribution workers.
We do expect the supply chain issues will continue for at least the next 12 months. However, they are quite critical at the moment, and that will ease a little as we get over this Omicron curve.
But for now, there are dire warnings, particularly for food, the meat industry.
This is an emergency, as at now.
Calling for rapid COVID tests to keep meat workers on the job or risk meat shortages within 2 weeks. No lamb for Australia Day.
That's a very strong possibility, unless we get these settings right.
A disrupted supply chain that begins from here at the port. Unions say transport operators out of the docks have lost up to half their workforce from COVID impacts.
Truckies say they should be given testing priority.
This is on the Prime Minister, and the first thing he needs to do is get rapid antigen tests to these essential workers free of charge and flowing freely.
Far from free, rapid tests are being offered for big money, priced on eBay for as much as $150 each. Packs sold as single tests to hike the price. Today, the competition watchdog warned gougers.
Otherwise, they could find themselves named in a very public way or indeed taken to court.
One issue, stockpiling, unless you're planning this.
I've got some rapid antigen tests which I can give away. We've ordered some for our business. I reckon I could spare about 1,000 of them.
The lot gone in 3 hours.
And Chris Mars in Crow's Nest tonight. Chris, good evening to you. Some encouraging news, thankfully, about rat test supplies.
Michael, leading pharmacy chain Chemist Warehouse has confirmed it's expecting a major delivery of rapid antigen tests in stores by the end of the week. Of course, that's ahead of the federal government promising 100 million of the tests in Australia by the end of the month. Now, tomorrow, National Cabinet meets to discuss the costs of the tests, who pays for them and who may get them for free. That's amid calls to ensure the tests are freely available to concession card holders. Michael?
Chris Mather in Crow's Nest, thank you.
The United States has now recorded 1 million cases in 24 hours, a global record as the Omicron tsunami sweeps the country. The number has almost doubled from 4 days ago, but experts there say the real rate of new cases is likely to be higher, as many people are now doing at-home tests with results not reported. The man accused of lighting the fire that caused significant damage to Old Parliament House has been released on bail. He's part of a group that claims laws don't apply to them. But he didn't get far, accused of breaching his bail conditions minutes after leaving jail.
2 days after he was arrested for allegedly setting fire to the front of Old Parliament House, the suspected arsonist is released on bail.
Happy to be out.
But just minutes after leaving jail, the 30-year-old was arrested again.
He just got out. Come on, come on.
Accused of breaching his bail conditions by re-entering the Canberra suburb of Parkes, not far from Old Parliament.
We're here to grab his belongings and then he's on his way.
Originally taken into custody on Sunday, police say the Victorian man repeatedly carried hot coals from a smoking ceremony fire in the car park up the steps to the front doors, stoking the blaze, helping it spread. His name suppressed to protect him from retribution. He's part of the Sovereign Citizen Movement, a group that believes the government is illegitimate and laws don't apply to them.
We've taken a stand to now assert our sovereignty and challenge the jurisdiction of the Australian corporation.
Several supporters moving from the lawns of Old Parliament to the ACT Magistrates Court, as another of their members, arrested for trespass, also walked free on bail.
Australian Capital Territory Police, the AFP, the Australian Government, the Commonwealth, all of it. It's all a fiction and it doesn't belong on this land.
His freedom short-lived. The alleged arsonist will now spend another night in custody before facing the magistrate again tomorrow, who may not be as ready to grant him bail a second time. Rob Scott, 7 News.
A New York court has unsealed a once-secret document Prince Andrew hopes will end the sexual abuse lawsuit against him. The papers show his accuser, Australian-based Virginia Tue, settled an earlier claim against convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, but included money and strings attached.
A legal document hidden for 12 years now bursts into the middle of one of the world's most watched court fights. Prince Andrew denies claims from Australian Virginia Tue he sexually abused her when she was just 17. In 2009, she was in another legal fight against the man she claimed not only abused but trafficked her for sex, convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Released today, their settlement. Epstein paying $500,000 US, about 700,000 Australian. Virginia Tue agreeing to release, acquit, satisfy and forever discharge from any legal action Jeffrey Epstein and any other person or entity who could have been included as a potential defendant.
And now we know that it covers any and all potential defendants who were involved in that Florida lawsuit. And the question is, was Prince Andrew one of them?
His lawyers are set to argue in a video appearance before a New York judge tomorrow that old deal slams the door on the case launched last August against their client.
Virginia Tue's attorneys are going to say that it is an entirely irrelevant clause, this 2009 agreement, that doesn't refer to Prince Andrew by name at all.
For the Prince, the 2009 agreement could yet be a double-edged sword, stopping the legal action against him, but also highlighting his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
It's a stretch to say that as it were, we were close friends. I mean, we were friends because of other people.
And yet now the Prince and his lawyers are hanging on to the settlement Epstein bought years ago. In the United States, Tim Lester, 7 News.
A man's frightening New Year's Eve tussle with police at Redfern train station has been posted online. He can be seen wrestling with officers before being pepper sprayed and tasered when he then stumbled onto the tracks. The 34-year-old went over head first despite the officers' attempts to try to stop him. He's been charged with affray and resisting arrest and will face court next month.
A man is drowned at a suburban park in Sydney southwest while trying to retrieve his son's ball from a lake. It is the 4th drowning in New South Wales in just 3 days. And as the warm weather continues, authorities fear there will be more.
A family's heartache as they watch their brother's body pulled from a lake. Fahim Wakili drowned late yesterday while playing with his 2 children at this Mount Adam park.
You'd see him here kicking balls with his kids in the park after school. You'd see him pick up the kids and walk them home. He's here that often. It's hard to believe.
The 38-year-old son kicked a ball into the lake. Fahim went in to get it, but he couldn't swim.
All I saw was bubbles, and I jumped in after him, but basically it was too late. I couldn't do anything.
Police divers recovered his body 3 hours later.
For him to do what he did, I take my hat off to him. It's what anyone would do, but if that's the result, it's sad.
It's the 4th drowning in New South Wales in just 3 days, with more than 300 rescues carried out, including this man who was rushed to hospital after being pulled from the ocean on the south coast this morning.
In New South Wales, we've seen 9 fatalities occur since the 1st of December.
Today we've seen hazardous conditions along most of the state's coast, with 80% of our 146 beaches closed. But despite the warnings, people were still going in the surf, even here at Tamarama, one of the country's most dangerous beaches. Coastal conditions are expected to ease by tomorrow morning. Natasha Squarey, 7 News.
A Western Sydney couple narrowly escaped serious injury when an out-of-control ute crashed through a wall, just missing their bedroom. The teenage driver allegedly sprinted off before police arrived, leaving his mate trapped in the wreck.
3:30 this morning and a P-plater ploughs through an Emu Heights home. Above, Leslie Bryant and his fiancée were asleep.
I heard an almighty bang and I rushed outside and there was a car through the house. I think I'll get a lottery ticket.
The 19-year-old lost control on a bend, the ute spinning backwards down an embankment, but the driver didn't stick around.
I got the passenger out and I just said to him, where's the driver? And he said, oh, he's taken off.
The crash came hours after police wrapped up their holiday road safety campaign, double demerits failing to deter dangerous drivers.
There was 9,000 tickets that were issued for speeding offences. 580 people were stopped for drink driving. 680 people were stopped for driving with drugs.
This woman lost her licence on Christmas Eve, clocked doing almost 160 in a 70 zone. A man at Moree fined $3,500 for going 51 kilometres an hour over the limit with unrestrained children inside. While there were less tickets issued over the Christmas period than previous years, sadly, 5 people died in crashes on New South Wales roads. Police say each of these were entirely avoidable.
Early stages in the investigation, we can see that 60% of the crashes already contributing to alcohol, drugs and speed.
The Emu Heights driver was arrested around the corner and taken to hospital. Charges are expected. Andrew Denny, 7 News.
The biggest event on Sydney's cricketing calendar begins tomorrow, the annual Pink Test at the SCG. The 4th Ashes Test between Australia and England will raise money for the McGrath Foundation to support breast care nurses right around Australia. Aussie legend Glenn McGrath hopes to attend from day 3. He's currently in isolation, as we know, after he tested positive for COVID.
Yeah, I'm feeling great, which is probably the frustrating side of things, but have absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. So frustrating, I'll be sitting here rather than down at the SCG.
Not so frustrating Boxing Day for Test hero Scott Boland. He's retained his spot in the Australian team. Our coverage begins 9:30 tomorrow morning on 7.
Now, Amber is here with Sydney's weather. Amber, mostly blue skies across the city today.
Yes, and plenty of sunshine, and it was warm again today. 29 degrees was the top in the city. A degree warmer in the west this afternoon, reaching 30.1. Across the state, temperatures hovered in the late 30s west of the Divide, reaching the late 20s along the coast. 25 was the top at Newcastle, 24 at Byron, with parts of the far north also experiencing scattered showers throughout the day. Since 9 a.m, 9 mils has fallen near Lismore, almost 20 mils just inland of Coffs Harbour. Tonight we're also watching some showers and storms that have been happening over the southern ranges this afternoon, but a bigger change is on the way, with showers set to settle in right along the coast tonight and severe storms likely across the state throughout the rest of the week. I'll have more on that a little later. Michael and Ange.
Thank you, Amber. She was the toast of Silicon Valley with a blood testing invention and very big donors, but her promise to revolutionise healthcare was a lie. Next, guilty of fraud, how Elizabeth Holmes came undone.
Wiped out in Liverpool, a rider's plea to the driver he says fled the scene.
Donald Trump calls in the lawyers for himself and 2 of his children.
Plus, a salty sighting on an Aussie beach.
And a new website tracking down rapid tests. How to find one. That's soon.
Welcome back to 7 News. A motorbike rider has recorded the shocking moment. He came off his bike in Liverpool after a driver merged into his lane without giving way. The bike hit the car at speed, but luckily the rider managed to get up. He says the driver of the silver hatchback left the scene without stopping.
George Brandis, Australia's High Commissioner to the UK, has been caught up in an embarrassing diplomatic incident in Glasgow. It's understood Mr Brandis was running late and his driver attempted to join Prime Minister Scott Morrison's motorcade during the COP26 climate summit in November. Believing the car was a threat, 2 British police cars took off in pursuit, but once they realised the car had diplomatic plates, they hit the brakes, causing the 2 cars to crash into each other. No one was injured. The Foreign Affairs Department is investigating.
An American biotech billionaire is facing decades behind bars after being convicted of fraud and conspiracy charges. Elizabeth Holmes was considered the golden girl of Silicon Valley, and her blood testing startup company a game changer for healthcare. But it was all a scam, investors sinking millions of dollars into a product that did not work.
Elizabeth Holmes once chased the limelight.
Have anything you want to say?
She didn't today, unlike the years she spent spruiking her company Theranos and its blood testing device.
So this is the little tubes that we collect the samples in. We call them the nanotainer.
She claimed her machine would revolutionise healthcare by detecting a range of diseases with a few drops of blood from a single finger prick.
More people will have access to their own health information.
High-profile investors bought into the promise. Media mogul Rupert Murdoch poured more than $170 million into the Silicon Valley startup.
Talk about being inspired. This is inspiration, man.
But Elizabeth Holmes was not inspirational. She was a scammer and is now a convicted criminal, found guilty of 4 out of 11 counts of conspiracy and fraud.
Anything that happens in this company is my responsibility at the end of the day, and I hold myself responsible for that.
After a 3-month trial, so did a jury.
The guilty verdicts in this case reflect Ms. Holmes' culpability in this large-scale investor fraud.
A spectacular fall from grace for the woman once lauded the world's youngest female self-made billionaire. Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
Donald Trump and 2 of his children are fighting subpoenas seeking their testimony in an ongoing civil investigation. Ivanka Trump, Donald Trump Jr. and the former president have all been requested to give evidence into whether the Trump organisation manipulated the value of its properties. The family today unleashed lawyers who argue the New York Attorney General will use interviews in a civil case to leverage a separate criminal investigation. The Trumps call it a dangerous precedent. Their lawyers are now awaiting a court date to argue the case.
Apple has become the first publicly traded company worth more than $3 trillion US. After starting in a garage in California in 1976, it took 42 years to be worth $1 trillion. The rest made in the past 3 years. It's thought the next company to join the exclusive club will be Microsoft.
A monster winter storm is wreaking havoc in the US. Drivers on one highway were left stranded for hours when snow forced a bridge to shut. And here's a shot now of Air Force One arriving in almost whiteout conditions as Washington copped the brunt of it. The president emerging in a raging blizzard. At DC's main airport alone, 84% of flights were cancelled. Add the weather to hundreds of staff calling in sick with COVID, and it is a nightmare situation that has left thousands of people stranded trying to make their way home across the country.
Now to a not-so-cuddly creature. A crocodile has been spotted stalking its prey on a far north Queensland beach. The 2.5 metres salty was seen by locals on Bramston Beach, south of Cairns, over the long weekend. The croc was filmed soaking up the sun near some birds before slinking back into the waves. Certainly something you don't want to encounter while on holidays, not at all. Now, hundreds of travellers were caught in airport chaos on Christmas Eve. Now there's a class action lawsuit. If you weren't there, you'd remember the pictures. Plans left in tatters by testing. Here the case lawyers are now mounting next.
Life-saving spot. What a hockey fan noticed that saved a man's life. That's ahead.
A burst of colour inside the Opera House. Sydney's new creativity hub just opened.
Ahead in sport, the Warners' big weekend. Why Candice might miss out on seeing Dave smash an SCG century.
Welcome back again. Furious travellers who had their Christmas ruined by a COVID testing bungle have launched a national class action case. Many claim they were left stranded after being denied access to prepaid tests legally required for takeoff. Now they want justice.
It was the holiday promise that turned into a nightmare.
Now we're in limbo. It's a huge problem.
It's not fair. Passengers turned away Christmas Eve after paying for pre-flight PCR tests. Now they're threatening a class action.
To obtain some compensation for those who have lost money and possibly have had a psychological injury as well.
The domestic flyers told the test was only for international travellers.
It looks like we're not going to be able to fly.
Hundreds at airports in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane will left stranded and waiting for refunds.
The company involved, to our understanding, has not come forward and made any apology or offer of remuneration to those impacted.
Histopath wasn't talking today, but the consumer watchdog says a refund is the least they should expect.
It's up to them if they want to take further action themselves, because they obviously may have suffered.
They had done the responsible thing and booked for their testing.
After missing flights and family holidays, the next hurdle for victims could be the length of the class action. While hoping to start as soon as possible, lawyers admit it could take up to 12 months.
If it's a fairly simple case, then, the hope would be that we'd be able to resolve it quicker than that.
Angelique Opie, 7 News.
Australian scientists have made a new discovery in the fight against the Omicron variant. Researchers from the University of Melbourne found the body's white blood cells, or T cells, can attack the virus if it slips past antibodies from vaccination or previous infection. This second-line defence could offer protection from Omicron and help prevent serious illness.
David Bowie's entire songwriting catalogue has been sold in one hit. Classics like Space Oddity, Let's Dance and Heroes now belong to Warner Music in a deal believed to be worth close to $350 million. The deal gives Warner the right to 26 studio albums, as well as one posthumous release. That's all from his work from 1968 right through to the star's death in 2016. The deal was made by Bowie's estate, and it comes just days before what would have been his 75th birthday.
An eagle-eyed ice hockey fan has saved a man's life after spotting a suspicious mole on his neck during a game in the US. The aspiring medical student used her phone to raise the alarm, telling a team manager to see a doctor and get it checked.
Oh, wow.
Hi.
Hello.
It was a reunion neither of them saw coming.
Yes,
Nadia Popovici and Brian Hamilton were complete strangers until a fateful interaction at an ice hockey match in Seattle in October last year.
Just seeing him walk by the plexiglass multiple times, my eyes were immediately drawn to the back of his neck.
So she held her phone up with this grim message.
It threw me off, so I kind of just shrugged and kept going.
But it was advice that saved his life. Brian got them all checked, which turned out to be a malignant melanoma.
The words out of the doctor's mouth were, if I ignored that for 4 to 5 years, I wouldn't be here.
And on New Year's Day, the pair properly met.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
reaching out.
Well, thank you.
22-year-old Popovici is about to enter medical school.
We already started, apparently.
I guess.
And was given a $10,000 scholarship for her studies.
Nadia's medical career's off to a good start as this story just keeps getting better.
For advice that turned out to be priceless.
Appreciate it more than you know. I will remember this day forever.
Matthew Carstunen, 7 News.
Well, the Sydney Opera House has been home to some of the world's biggest artists. Now it is set to welcome some of the smallest. The doors flung open to a bespoke creative hub that is set to bring some much-needed colour to a city recovering from lockdowns.
A world of colour coming to life. The new creative hub inside the Sydney Opera House has finally found its groove. And it gets the tick of approval.
I thought it was really fun because we got to dance with the people on the TV.
Well, I had a lot of fun. I made 2 pom-poms. I made 1 pom-pom.
The first venue of its kind to open at the Opera House in over 20 years, the Centre for Creativity will be home to artists big and small.
Can you help me make some eyes?
Rosie Deacon, the first to go on show, her exhibition fittingly named Housewarming.
It's so exciting to see people come through housewarming. It's overwhelming and exciting in an incredible way.
This Centre for Creativity is one of the first spaces to open its doors as Sydney comes back from lockdown in a city that's learning to live in a new normal. Its opening delayed due to COVID, performances and exhibitions ready to get underway.
It adds another dimension to what we do at the Opera House in terms of inviting people in to actually set their creativity free.
It's great to have something really hands-on, creative for the kids to do.
Creativity returning to the harbour city once again. Liam Tapper, 7 News.
Well, they defied all expectations during the pandemic. So, where will house prices go in 2022? The real estate prediction is next.
Plus, the shoes made out of coffee. Sustainable footwear, but is it for everyone?
Breaking down the rat race, the new way to find who's got one near you and ensuring you get a correct result.
Soon in sport, backing Boland. Aussie cricket's newest star set to shine again, this time in Sydney.
And how much rain is set to fall across Sydney over the next few days? Those details soon.
Taking a look at finance now, the ASX closed up sharply by 145 points. Energy storage manufacturer Novanix was one of the strong performers of the day, while Chalice Mining ended today down 7%. Right now, our Aussie dollar is buying 72 US cents.
Sydney property prices rose by a staggering $1,000 a day last year, but 2022 is set to be a bit different. Last year's rapid growth, the fastest in 40 years, added 25% to the value of homes across the city. New figures show December's growth slowing to just 0.3%, with analysts predicting prices will drop 12% during this year. An interest rate rise by next Christmas could also see the market cooling further. Good news, perhaps, for first-home buyers.
There's more evidence today about the effect of isolation on your health. Australian researchers found healthy older adults with very limited social contact were 66% more likely to suffer cardiac arrest or stroke. Those with low social support had double the risk of someone with a good social network.
We know Australians love coffee, but have you ever thought about wearing it on your feet? No, you haven't. It's a silly question. But a company in Finland is using ground coffee waste to make waterproof sneakers. But sustainability, it appears, does not come cheap.
The emptying of used coffee granules, a step in the morning brew process. But a Finnish company has found there's no such thing as coffee waste and has decided to make shoes from it.
We actually took it and mixed it with recycled plastic pellets made from used water bottles. You know, the majority of the upper part of our shoes is made from those coffee polyester yarn.
The innovative coffee fibre fights odours and is antibacterial. Each pair is waterproof and made from around 150 grams of coffee granules and 6 plastic bottles. But sustainability isn't cheap. The base model sneaker costs around $165.
We want to be a brand where it's like, yeah, we make sustainable products, but they are cool. They have really cool functions. People can actually use them.
Only 5% of the coffee waste in the world actually got recycled, and coffee waste is a bio waste, but it's actually produced like a lot of methane.
The company, which sources the coffee from cafes in Asia, is brewing up a new idea: T-shirts and sportswear, the next wardrobe essentials to be made from coffee. In London, Tegan Dolling, 7 News.
From Rudy Hill to the bright lights of Broadway. Following sold-out runs in Paris and Dubai, The Little Prince is now playing at the Sydney Coliseum Theatre. It brings to life the tale of a lost aviator who meets the little prince in the desert. After its Sydney run, the cast and crew head to New York. Tickets are still available.
Well, they can be confusing and expensive, not to mention hard to get your hands on, but many of us are making mistakes when using do-it-yourself rat tests. So what you need to know and how to get it right. Don't miss those details soon here on 7 News.
First, Matt's here with sport, and Matt, Aussie selectors, they're keeping the faith.
Hey guys, yeah, fans are absolutely loving this as well. They've given new cult hero Scott Boland another chance to excel after his Boxing Day heroics, this time at the SCG. Coming up, all of your Ashes selection news, plus some family rivalry. Candice Warner looks to outshine Davey in the Sporting Stakes. And the highlights keep coming in the Big Bash, but a COVID spike has organisers considering a drastic move. Welcome back. Scott Boland has been rewarded for his dazzling debut in the Boxing Day Test. Retained in Australia's 11, Boland gets another chance to wreak havoc against England in tomorrow's Pink Test at the SCG.
Batting instead of bowling today, Scott Boland will be no one-test wonder. I'm really glad he gets another crack at here.
Boland's Ashes ceiling 6 for 7 on Boxing Day. Compelling numbers for his captain and a fellow bowling great.
Doubt it's going to be 6 for 7, but I did say just last week, just nothing more than that, mate. We'll take last week, so don't try any harder.
They sort of earmarked him for Melbourne and for the SCG, so yeah, I think he'll do well.
Josh Hazlewood close, but not over that side strain. Usman Khawaja recalled for the COVID-affected Travis Head. Australia's top run scorer bound to be back for the final test.
Heady will be back in for Hobart.
England's only change, Stuart Broad, reunited with good mate and all-rounder Ben Stokes.
I hope I've got a couple of caged tigers coming into this match.
The SCG ready for the pink test.
Nearly the opposite to COVID. COVID has pushed everyone apart. This is a way we can bring people together again.
But plenty of COVID reminders for spectators. Cummins feeling for the Poms decimated by the pandemic.
I think that they've sacrificed quite a lot to come over here.
The constant testing day in, day out is a distraction. And I'd like to think that we can find a better way around it going forward in the future.
COVID may be the game's latest threat, but cricket's oldest enemy, rain, is forecast here in the harbour city for day one. Whether the weather can save England from a series whitewash, well, watch Channel 7's live and free coverage tomorrow. Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
Well, Dave Warner has an extra incentive to help crush England inside 3 days once again. If that happens, Warner can watch wife Candice make her comeback to Ironwoman racing after more than a decade at North Bondi on Saturday.
Getting back into the sport was about showing the kids what I do, but also just having a bit of fun. Training has been going really well up until about December when I joined the Australian cricket bubble.
The Summer of Surf event begins on Friday. Brisbane Heat are the 4th Big Bash team to be hit by COVID, forcing a fixture reshuffle. The Sixers were meant to play the Heat on the Gold Coast tonight, but will take on the Scorchers instead. The Sixers Heat clash will now be played tomorrow night, followed by the Scorchers versus the Thunder on Thursday night. With 12 players in isolation, the Melbourne Stars reluctantly took to the field last night.
It's been a huge risk. The worst possible result could be infecting the opposition and having a couple of teams going down at the wrong time.
Harris Ralph's boundary line heroics couldn't prevent a 5-wicket loss to the Renegades. Organisers are looking at moving the competition into a Melbourne bio-hub. That win lifts the Renegades off the bottom of the ladder. The fixture reshuffle means top spot will be up for grabs tonight when the Sixers Scorchers do battle. We'll head to Metricon Stadium on the Gold Coast for that match straight after 7 years. Nick Kyrgios has pulled out of an Australian Open lead-up tournament in Melbourne with asthma. And Japanese star Naomi Osaka is back in action 4 months after taking a mental health break. The 4-time Grand Slam winner defeated Elise Cornet in the first round of the Melbourne Somerset lead-up event.
Hopefully you guys also come back for the Australian Open, but it feels really nice to play in front of people.
Stefanos Tsitsipas remains under an injury cloud. The world number 4's surgically repaired elbow is causing him plenty of grief at the ATP Cup. Manchester United continued to set unwanted records in the Premier League. Handed the captain's armband, Cristiano Ronaldo had a goal disallowed for offside against Wolverhampton, and it proved costly. United beaten by Wolves at Old Trafford for the first time in 42 years.
Michel Moutinho, 1-0 Wolves. The veteran.
United remain 7th on the ladder. Daniel Sanders has surrendered the lead at the Dakar Rally in Saudi Arabia. Local wildlife presented an additional challenge for the Aussie in Stage 2. He took a wrong turn and lost valuable time, slipping to 7th overall, more than 13 minutes behind new leader Sam Sunderland. Two-time winner Toby Price is up to 15th, but still trails by more than half an hour. Australia's Winter Olympic team uniforms have been revealed a month out from the Games in Beijing. Competition outfits will be unveiled over the coming weeks. And after breaking his collarbone, Pyeongchang mogul skier, silver medalist, Matt Graham is racing to be fit.
Yeah, it's all going pretty well so far. It's a bit of a slow sort of process at the moment. I'm just over 3 weeks post-operations.
The Winter Games begin on February 4 live on 7. And just a reminder, guys, Ashes, of course, kicks off 9:30 a.m. straight after sunrise. Coverage and first ball around about 10:30.
All about the baggy green tomorrow. All right,
Looking good.
Thank you.
5-0. 5-0.
It's entirely likely. All right. Well, the last week or so has certainly taught us that rapid COVID tests are expensive and hard to find. If you're lucky enough to find a kit, there's a warning not all tests are created equal, and many are using the most popular swabs incorrectly.
They're the tests everyone wants to get their hands on, but many people aren't using them correctly.
We want to make every test count.
Ear, nose and throat surgeon Dr. Eric Levi says nasal swabs are of little use if you don't know what you're doing.
The nose is quite narrow at the roof, so if we were just aiming up in this direction, it's actually quite painful. So if you imagine trying to aim around the back of the nose would probably be the better direction, and just twirling that for about 15 to 30 seconds to get as much mucosa sample as possible.
It's why some experts believe throat tests are producing more accurate results.
People know how to do a throat swab quite well because they brush their teeth and sometimes they gag, but actually swabbing the nose is actually quite challenging.
Other experts say throat swabs seem to be more suited to Omicron symptoms.
People are really reporting a lot of sore throats with Omicron. It seems that kind of actually swabbing the throat may be better than just doing the nasal test alone.
The TGA has approved 18 home tests, ranging from very high sensitivity to acceptable sensitivity. The most commonly available tests are 90% accurate. Ongoing shortages of the tests have led to a Victorian man creating a new online locator. The Find a Rat website reporting what suburbs have stock all around the country. That's as finder.com.au crunches the numbers to find the most affordable options.
We've seen testing kits for as little as $10 per pack, all the way up to about $60. If you're spending more than about $60 on a rapid test, you're really paying the upper end right now.
The boss of Chemist Warehouse is now calling on the federal government to axe the GST on rapid tests, making them more affordable for people struggling to pay for them.
We sell a pack of 5 of these for $50, which works out to be about $10 a test. That'd immediately make one of these boxes $45, which is significant.
Shelves are expected to be better stocked with rapid tests over the coming days. Estelle Grieping, 7 News.
Amber is back now with the latest weather. And Amber, we're expecting heavy falls across the city tomorrow.
Yes, Ange, with the chance of a storm in the west later in the day. Your full forecast is coming up next.
Tonight's 7 News headlines: booster shots come early and thousands turn out for their third jab, but many testing clinics stay closed despite rising cases.
The meat industry warns of major shortages in a fortnight, demanding priority rapid testing for workers.
And an accused arsonist granted bail over the old Parliament House fire. Now, here's Amber with Sydney's weather.
Thank you, Michael. Well, we were treated to another day of sunshine, but it looks like those showers are set to arrive along parts of the coast during the early hours of tomorrow morning. Taking a look at the satellite, we can see ex-tropical cyclone Seth continues to linger off the Queensland coast, generating those strong winds, patchy showers and big swells we've seen along the coast today, particularly for the northern parts of the state. That system now appears to be tracking west towards the coast, bringing more fresh and gusty winds, plus a couple of extra showers over the next few days, while a slow-moving trough that's currently over central New South Wales is forecast to deepen and will also generate unsettled conditions across the state and for parts of Victoria. So showers and a possible storm is expected in Melbourne tomorrow, a shower or two likely in Adelaide. Very different story over in the west, 37 degrees and sunny tomorrow in Perth, with a shower or two also forecast for Brisbane. Statewide tomorrow, temperatures will remain warm. A warning for strong winds remains in place for the Byron coast tomorrow. Hazardous surf is also likely. You can see these showers moving across the coast early in the morning. They look like they'll settle in and impact most of the state by the weekend. It looks like the heaviest falls will impact parts of the state's south under the influence of that slow-moving trough. Up to 100 mils is expected there over the next 7 days or so. Closer to home, 25 degrees is expected along the beaches tomorrow, 27 degrees forecast for the west, 28 the top tomorrow in Blacktown, 26 in Richmond. On the water tomorrow, winds should track east to southeasterly at 10 to 15 knots before tending northeasterly, reaching 15 to 20 knots later in the day. Another warm night is expected in the city, dipping to 21 degrees, but on the way to a warm 28 tomorrow, with around 15 mils forecast to fall throughout the day. And then it does look like those showers will be heavier in the west, with a chance of a storm later during the afternoon or in the evening. But as we saw on the radar, it appears that wet weather is going to settle in until at least Saturday. At that point on Sunday, it does look like falls will start to ease up slightly, but it will remain grey and gloomy, but still quite warm until early next week. So, Michael and Ange, that's the latest weather. The forecast doesn't look like it's great news for the start of the fourth test tomorrow.
Could hold off in the morning, though, which will be okay. All right, Amber, thank you. That is 7 News for this Tuesday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening.
Sunrise starts from 5:30 tomorrow from all of the 7 News team. Thanks so much for your company. Have a great night.
Good night.